Shocking showdown at the Horse Guard. Tourists flip the bird, but the horse police strike back. It was a bright and sunny morning in the heart of London, the kind of day that made the city feel alive and full of excitement. Tourists from all over the world had gathered near the Horse Guard's parade, one of the city's most famous landmarks. The air buzzed with the chatter of visitors, the clicks of camera shutters, and the occasional laughter of children running around with their parents. People had come not only to see the magnificent ceremonial guards on horseback, but also to experience a piece of history, something that felt both royal and timeless. The Horse Guards parade had an air of elegance that was impossible to ignore. The guards, dressed in their iconic red tunics and shiny black helmets, sat atop enormous, majestic horses. The horses themselves were as disciplined as their riders, moving in perfect unison and responding instantly to every command. The crowd watched in awe as the guards performed their routines with unwavering precision. Each movement, each step of the horse, seemed rehearsed to perfection, creating a display that was both graceful and powerful. Among the tourists, a group of young friends stood out. They were visiting London for the first time, eager to capture every moment of their trip. Cameras and smartphones were held high, ready to document every angle of the parade. While most visitors were quietly admiring the ceremony, these friends were a bit more playful. They whispered jokes to each other, laughed loudly, and occasionally made funny faces toward the guards. At first, it was subtle, just silly smiles or little waves, but soon they started exaggerating their gestures, pointing and laughing among themselves. The group didn't mean any harm. In their minds, it was all just harmless fun, a way to make their trip more memorable. They thought of it as joking around, imagining that the guards, with their serious faces and stiff posture, would never even notice them. Tourists often came to this place expecting a strict, almost untouchable formality, and they assumed that as long as they didn't cross a line, nothing serious could happen. But little did they realize that the guards, and especially their horses, were trained to notice even the smallest movements. The other visitors watched with a mix of amusement and concern. Some tried to subtly warn the group to behave, while others quietly observed the playful antics. The young tourists didn't mean to attract attention, but their loud laughter and exaggerated gestures naturally drew the eyes of those around them. Children pointed, giggling, and some parents shook their heads, whispering that it wasn't polite to make fun of the guards. The atmosphere was a mix of excitement and tension, even though most people didn't realize it yet. The guards themselves remained calm, standing tall on their horses. They had seen tourists act silly before, and for the most part, they ignored minor distractions. Their training had taught them to maintain discipline, no matter what happened around them. But horses, despite their strength and training, were highly sensitive animals. Even a small movement, a sudden shout, or an unexpected gesture could startle them if not handled carefully. Each horse seemed aware of the tourists nearby, watching them with calm but alert eyes. As the morning continued, more and more visitors gathered. Cameras flashed constantly, capturing the bright uniforms of the guards, the shiny leather of the saddles, and the soft sunlight reflecting off the horses' coats. The playful tourists moved closer to get better pictures, laughing among themselves as they posed in silly positions. One of them even tried to mimic the guard's stiff posture, pretending to ride an invisible horse while his friends recorded him on their phones. The crowd around them chuckled quietly, appreciating the humor, but the guards remained completely composed, their faces unmoving and their focus sharp. Despite the cheerful mood, there was a subtle tension in the air. The guards' eyes occasionally flicked toward the playful group, and their horses shifted slightly, muscles tensing as they sensed something unusual. Even though the tourists thought everything was just fun and games, the situation was becoming delicate. The line between harmless amusement and disrespect was invisible, but it existed nonetheless. Every step the tourists took closer to the guards, every exaggerated wave or silly pose, had the potential to disrupt the carefully maintained order of the parade. One of the tourists, the most adventurous of the group, whispered an idea to the others. He suggested that they make the funniest face possible for the next photo, imagining it would become the highlight of their trip. The others giggled in agreement, not realizing that their harmless plan was slowly escalating into something more serious. As they prepared for the photo, they moved even closer to the mounted guards, the distance between them shrinking with every step. Meanwhile, the crowd around them watched in mixed anticipation. Some people leaned in to see what would happen next, while others quietly stepped back, sensing that the playful antics might soon cross a line. The atmosphere, though sunny and cheerful, had become charged with a quiet suspense. Everyone present felt, in some unspoken way, that something important was about to occur, a moment where the discipline of the horse guards and the spontaneity of tourists would meet. And so the morning continued at the Horse Guards parade, with the sounds of laughter, camera clicks, and quiet whispers filling the air. The guards remained poised, their horses alert, and the playful tourists blissfully unaware of the tension building around them. It was a day that started with curiosity and amusement, but it was slowly becoming the scene of an unforgettable encounter. Every movement, every gesture, every glance had begun to set the stage for a surprising and shocking showdown that no one visiting that morning would soon forget. The calm and beauty of the parade, the cheerful excitement of the tourists, and the quiet strength of the guards all blended together, creating a scene that seemed ordinary on the surface, but held the potential for a moment that would be talked about for years. The Horse Guards parade had welcomed countless visitors before, but that morning, with the sun shining brightly and tourists laughing loudly, it was clear that history was about to be made, not by ceremonies or traditions, but by a spontaneous, unexpected clash between fun-loving tourists and the steadfast discipline of the horse police. The cheerful morning at the Horse Guards parade was slowly changing. What had begun as a light-hearted scene with tourists laughing and taking photos was now moving into a delicate balance. The playful group of friends had grown bolder, encouraged by their own amusement and the laughter of some onlookers. They didn't yet understand that their antics were starting to draw the attention of the guards in a more serious way. The leader of the group, a young man with a wide smile, decided to step even closer to the mounted guards. He raised his camera to take another selfie, and this time he made a large, exaggerated gesture, thinking it would be hilarious. His friends joined in, each trying to outdo the other, laughing loudly as they posed. Some members of the crowd chuckled, while others frowned, sensing that the playful gestures were crossing a line. The air was still sunny and bright, but there was an invisible tension growing between the disciplined guards and the playful tourists. The guards, trained for patience and professionalism, did not react immediately. They remained on their horses, faces calm, eyes forward, and hands steady on the reins. They had faced rowdy crowds before, and they knew that any sudden movement could startle the horses. The horses, magnificent creatures, were alert. Their ears twitched, and their large eyes scanned the area. Even though the animals were accustomed to crowds, they sensed the unusual energy coming from the tourists, whose laughter and gestures were louder and more animated than usual. As the playful tourists continued, a few nearby visitors began to whisper among themselves. "I hope they don't get too close," said a mother watching with her young children. "These horses are beautiful, but they are strong and sensitive animals." Others nodded, quietly warning each other to be careful, realizing that what seemed like harmless fun could quickly become risky if the tourists continued to escalate. One of the tourists, the most daring of the group, thought it would be funny to mimic the movements of the guards. He held his body stiff, pretending to ride an invisible horse, while his friends laughed and recorded him on their phones. He waved his arms in exaggerated motions and made faces at the guards, expecting them to remain completely serious. But the guards and their horses were not unaware. Each movement, each loud laugh was noticed. The horses shifted slightly under their riders, muscles tense, ready to respond if needed. The young tourists, oblivious to the growing tension, decided to get even closer to the parade line. They stepped past the barriers that were meant to keep visitors at a safe distance. A small crowd gathered behind them, some watching curiously, others filming the unfolding events. The sounds of the city, the honking cars, chatter of people, and distant music, mixed with the loud laughter and camera clicks, creating a lively but slightly chaotic atmosphere. Meanwhile, the commanding officer of the Horse Guards, standing slightly apart from the main group, began to notice the situation. He observed the tourists' behavior with a calm but focused gaze. His experience told him that this playful behavior, if not managed, could quickly escalate into something more serious. He did not panic. Instead, he signaled subtly to the other guards to stay alert. The horses responded instantly, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. They moved just slightly, enough to signal readiness without alarming the crowd. The atmosphere was now a mix of excitement and silent tension. The tourists, laughing and joking, were completely unaware of the careful observation around them. They were focused only on their cameras, trying to capture funny photos and videos for social media. "This will be the best part of our trip," one of them exclaimed. They did not realize that every step they took closer to the guards, every loud shout, and every exaggerated gesture was making the parade ground more unpredictable. A few tourists in the surrounding area began to feel uneasy. They whispered warnings to each other, trying to stay calm while observing the escalating antics. One visitor murmured, "I think they're pushing it a little too far." Another nodded, saying quietly, "Yes, the horses are huge." One sudden movement could cause trouble. Their concern was genuine, and some even began to step back, creating small gaps around the group. The contrast between the disciplined guards and the playful tourists was becoming more noticeable, drawing attention from everyone nearby. The playful tourists, still caught up in their excitement, decided to escalate their antics even further. One of them shouted, "Let's see if we can make them react." He raised both hands in the air, laughing loudly. His friends followed suit, waving and gesturing directly toward the mounted guards. The crowd around them gasped quietly, sensing that this could be the moment where the situation might finally change. The commanding officer noticed immediately. His eyes narrowed slightly, but his expression remained calm. He knew that the next moments would be crucial. The horses sensed the shift in energy. Their ears turned forward, nostrils flared slightly, and their strong legs tensed under the weight of their riders. The young tourists did not notice this subtle warning. They laughed and posed for pictures, completely immersed in their own fun. One tourist, in an attempt to be funny, leaned a little too close to one of the horses, causing the animal to shift slightly in response. The crowd collectively held its breath. Everyone understood that the situation was delicate, and even a small misstep could trigger a reaction. The commanding officer finally decided to intervene. He walked calmly toward the playful group, signaling with a hand gesture for the tourists to stop and step back. His voice, though polite, carried authority as he spoke firmly yet calmly. "Please maintain a safe distance from the guards and horses," he said. The tourists, surprised, paused in mid-laughter. Some looked embarrassed, realizing they may have gone too far. Others giggled nervously, unsure of how serious the situation was. The atmosphere was tense but controlled. The tourists took a small step back, lowering their cameras slightly. The commanding officer continued, "This area is for ceremonial purposes. The guards and horses are trained professionals, and it's important to respect their space." The tourists nodded quickly, murmuring apologies. Some of the crowd applauded quietly, relieved that the situation had not escalated further. Despite the intervention, the playful tourists were still curious and somewhat mischievous. They whispered to each other, laughing softly about how serious the guards looked. They didn't fully understand the professionalism required to manage these magnificent animals. The commanding officer noticed their lingering curiosity but remained patient, knowing that the key was to de-escalate without creating fear or confrontation. The horses, meanwhile, settled slightly but remained alert. Their strength and training were clear to anyone watching closely. The crowd continued to observe quietly, impressed by the calm authority of the guards and the disciplined movements of the horses. The playful tourists, while slightly subdued, continued to watch the parade, slowly realizing that their amusement had boundaries. By the late morning, the scene had transformed from a light-hearted tourist activity to a careful balancing act. The commanding officer maintained his position, watching both the crowd and the playful tourists. The guards on horseback continued their routine, calm and disciplined, each movement precise and controlled. The tourists, now more aware of their surroundings, began to behave more respectfully, although they still whispered to each other and shared quiet laughs at their own antics. The contrast between the disciplined guards and the playful, curious tourists highlighted the unique energy of the Horse Guards parade. On one side, there was professionalism, history, and tradition. On the other, excitement, laughter, and spontaneity. Both existed in the same space, creating a memorable morning for everyone present. The tourists began to understand that their fun, while enjoyable, needed to be tempered by respect for the ceremonial display and the incredible animals involved. As the morning progressed, the tourists moved slowly back to a safer distance, still taking photos but more cautiously. The commanding officer gave a subtle nod of approval, acknowledging their willingness to follow instructions. The crowd around them relaxed, and the atmosphere returned to a mix of enjoyment and admiration. Everyone could feel that they had witnessed something unusual, a small story of tension and amusement unfolding in real time. By the time the sun had moved higher in the sky, the parade continued smoothly. The playful tourists had learned an important lesson in respect and awareness, while the crowd had enjoyed a unique morning filled with both excitement and a hint of suspense. The horses remained majestic, the guards unwavering, and the Horse Guards parade continued its tradition of excellence, leaving everyone present with a story to tell and a memory that would last long after they had left the area. The morning, which began with laughter and harmless fun, had subtly shifted into a demonstration of discipline, respect, and the power of animals trained to perfection. For the tourists, it was a lesson learned without harm. For the crowd, it was a story worth sharing. And for the guards, it was just another day maintaining order, tradition, and the grace of the Horse Guards parade. The morning had grown warmer, and the Horse Guards parade was alive with the soft hum of the city, mixed with the occasional clip-clop of hooves. The playful group of tourists, though slightly subdued after the commanding officer's intervention, still lingered near the parade line. They were fascinated by the grandeur of the guards and the magnificent horses, but their curiosity and excitement had not faded. Little did they realize that the situation was reaching a critical point, the moment when harmless fun could quickly turn into an unforgettable incident. The leader of the group, a young man named Alex, whispered to his friends, "Let's just get one more funny photo. Nothing too crazy, just a quick pose." His friends nodded eagerly, still caught up in the thrill of the moment. Cameras were raised again, flashes ready, as they prepared to make the guards and horses the centerpiece of their antics. At first, it seemed harmless. They posed stiffly, imitating the guards, straight posture, and waved their arms in exaggerated motions. Some of the crowd around them chuckled quietly, enjoying the playful energy without realizing how close they were to testing the limits. However, one of the friends, trying to be bolder than the rest, decided to lean closer toward a horse, waving both arms in the air. He laughed loudly, thinking it would make for the funniest photo of the trip. The horse, a large chestnut stallion with calm eyes, noticed the movement. Although it had been trained to remain steady in crowds, the animal was still sensitive to sudden gestures directly in its line of sight. Its ears twitched, nostrils flared slightly, and its powerful muscles tensed. The tourists did not notice these subtle signs. They were too focused on their cameras and on making each other laugh. Nearby spectators began to murmur quietly. "I hope they don't get too close," said a mother holding her child's hand. "The horses are beautiful, but they are strong. One sudden movement and—" She trailed off, her concern visible in her eyes. Other visitors nodded silently, shifting slightly back to maintain a safer distance. The playful tourists, caught up in their own excitement, were unaware that they had stepped into a delicate zone, a space where respect and discipline met curiosity and amusement. The commanding officer, standing at a short distance, noticed the escalation immediately. His eyes narrowed slightly as he observed the young man leaning toward the horse. He had seen such behavior before and knew that even well-trained horses could react instinctively if startled. Calmly but decisively, he signaled to the guards to stay alert. The guards, alert to the slightest cue from their officer, adjusted their posture slightly and maintained their focus on the crowd. Their horses shifted under them, each movement precise and controlled, ready to respond if necessary. Alex, the leader of the tourists, noticed the subtle tension but misread it. "They're just standing there. It's fine," he whispered to his friends. "Come on, let's get a close-up shot." They laughed quietly among themselves, moving a step closer to the mounted guards. One of them jokingly waved a hand directly toward the horse, thinking it would make the perfect, funny photo. At that moment, the chestnut stallion shifted slightly backward, planting its hooves firmly on the ground. Its rider remained composed, but the slight movement of the horse sent a ripple of awareness through the crowd. The crowd held its breath. Even those who had been amused moments earlier now sensed the growing tension. Everyone could see the horse's alert posture. Its ears rotated toward the tourists, muscles tightening, nostrils flaring slightly. The commanding officer walked slowly toward the group, his hands raised in a gesture of calm authority. "Please step back," he said firmly but politely. "The horses are trained professionals, but sudden movements can startle them." The tourists froze mid-laughter. Alex's friends whispered nervously, realizing that they may have pushed the boundaries too far. One of them muttered, "Maybe we should have listened the first time." Another nodded, lowering their camera slightly. The commanding officer continued, walking closer, ensuring that the tourists maintained a safe distance. His calm authority contrasted sharply with the nervous energy of the playful group. The crowd watched silently, sensing that something significant had just occurred, a moment where fun and discipline collided. Despite the warnings, Alex, still caught up in the excitement, decided to take one last playful action. He pointed directly at the horse, waving both hands, and let out a loud laugh. The chestnut stallion, already alert and tense, reacted instinctively. It shifted backward with a controlled movement, its large hooves pressing into the ground. The rider's calm hand on the reins guided the horse carefully, but the display of power and discipline was unmistakable. The tourists took a step back, startled by the sudden response. The crowd reacted immediately. Some gasped softly, while others murmured in relief that the situation had not escalated further. Children clutched their parents' hands, and a few nearby tourists instinctively moved back. The commanding officer's presence and calm instructions had prevented any serious incident, but the lesson had been clear. The horses, despite their training and composure, were living beings with instincts that demanded respect. The young tourists, now fully aware of the seriousness of the moment, apologized quickly. "We didn't mean to upset the horse," Alex said earnestly. His friends nodded in agreement, lowering their cameras completely. The commanding officer acknowledged their apologies with a subtle nod, maintaining a calm but firm demeanor. "Respect and awareness are important," he reminded them. "The horses and guards perform with precision. They deserve that respect." As the tourists stepped back, the tension in the air slowly eased. The chestnut stallion relaxed slightly, returning to its calm stance under the control of its rider. The guards resumed their routine, moving gracefully and in perfect unison, demonstrating their discipline and training. The crowd, now more relaxed, began to quietly admire the display once again. The playful tourists, though still excited, had learned an important lesson about boundaries, respect, and the power of animals trained for precision and discipline. The morning continued with a renewed sense of order. The tourists moved back to a safer distance, still observing the parade with curiosity but now much more cautious. They whispered among themselves about the unexpected reaction of the horse, sharing a mix of relief and amazement. "That was incredible," one of them said softly. "I didn't realize how strong and responsive they are." Another nodded. "We got lucky that it didn't escalate. We have to be careful." Their laughter was quieter now, tempered by the lesson they had learned firsthand. Meanwhile, the commanding officer and the guards maintained their composure. They had handled a challenging situation with professionalism, ensuring the safety of both the visitors and the horses. Their calm presence and controlled movements reminded everyone that discipline and training are the foundation of the Horse Guards parade. The crowd, now observing with quiet admiration, began to take photos once more, capturing the majesty and precision of the guards and their horses. Even as the morning continued, the memory of the near incident lingered in the minds of the tourists. They realized that their playful antics had not been just harmless fun. They had tested boundaries and learned firsthand the importance of respect. The commanding officer's firm but calm intervention had prevented any serious incident, demonstrating that authority paired with patience and professionalism can manage even unexpected situations. By late morning, the parade had returned to its usual rhythm. The horses moved gracefully, the guards performed with precision, and the crowd, including the young tourists, observed respectfully. The playful energy had not disappeared entirely, but it was now balanced with awareness and appreciation for the discipline and training of the horse guards. The lesson was clear. Fun and curiosity are welcome, but they must coexist with respect and understanding. The incident, though brief, had created a memorable moment for everyone present. The tourists had learned a powerful lesson about boundaries, responsibility, and the majesty of the horses. The crowd had witnessed the delicate balance between human curiosity and professional discipline. And the Horse Guards parade had continued, maintaining its reputation for excellence, tradition, and composure, leaving an impression on all who visited that morning. As the sun climbed higher, the cheerful sounds of the city blended with the measured rhythm of hooves and the disciplined movements of the guards. The tourists, now humbled but still excited, began to share their experience quietly among themselves. They would remember this morning not just for the photos they took, but for the surprising lesson they had learned, a story of fun, tension, and respect at the heart of London's historic parade. The moment at the Horse Guards parade had passed, but the impact lingered in the air. Like a quiet hum, the playful tourists had stepped back, still catching their breath, realizing just how close they had come to disturbing the ceremony or startling the horses. Their excitement had turned into a mix of relief, embarrassment, and awe. Even though no one had been harmed and no serious incident had occurred, the young group understood that they had been part of a delicate situation, a moment that had required the calm authority of the guards to prevent anything from escalating. The commanding officer remained composed, watching the group with steady eyes. He had seen this pattern before. Visitors, caught up in curiosity and enthusiasm, sometimes forget the boundaries of respect. He walked toward the tourists slowly, not hurriedly, projecting calm confidence. "It's important to maintain a safe distance from the guards and horses," he said politely, yet firmly. "These animals are trained for ceremonial duties, and any sudden movement can make them react. Respect ensures everyone's safety and enjoyment." Alex, the leader of the tourists, felt a wave of humility wash over him. He looked at his friends and then at the officer, realizing that their playful antics could have ended differently if the horses had been startled more strongly. "We understand," he said sincerely. "We didn't mean any harm. We just got carried away with the excitement." The officer nodded, accepting their apology with a subtle gesture of acknowledgement. The rest of the group lowered their cameras, no longer eager to capture funny moments at the expense of the ceremony. They whispered quietly among themselves, replaying the events in their minds. "I can't believe how strong that horse is," one said. "It's amazing to watch, but it also demands respect." Another friend nodded, adding, "We should have stayed back from the start." Lesson learned? Their laughter was now softer, tinged with a new understanding of boundaries and awareness. Around them, the crowd that had been watching the entire episode began to relax. People who had initially been curious, concerned, or even slightly amused now shared quiet smiles and whispered comments. Some visitors turned to their companions, pointing out the discipline of the guards and the subtle power of the horses. Children asked their parents questions, eager to understand why the horses had moved and why the guards had intervened. Parents explained in simple terms about respect, training, and responsibility, turning the incident into a small, educational moment for the younger audience. The horses themselves returned to their calm, majestic presence. The chestnut stallion that had reacted earlier lowered its head slightly, ears flicking softly as if acknowledging that the tension had passed. Its rider adjusted the reins, maintaining perfect posture, and allowed the animal to settle fully into its routine. Observers could see the grace and strength of the horse, understanding why such discipline and care were necessary. The guards, meanwhile, resumed their ceremonial movements, each step precise and deliberate as if nothing had occurred. Yet those who had witnessed the incident knew better. The calm display was built on a foundation of vigilance and training, allowing for a controlled response in the face of unexpected events. Alex and his friends remained at a safe distance now, watching in awe as the guards continued their routines. They noticed the synchronized movements of the horses, the elegance of the rider's posture, and the seamless flow of the ceremony. For the first time, they saw beyond the photo opportunity and recognized the effort, discipline, and dedication required to maintain such precision. One of the tourists whispered, "It's like watching history come alive." Another added, "And we almost messed it up with our excitement." The commanding officer, seeing that the tourists had learned their lesson, decided to address the crowd in general, maintaining a professional yet friendly tone. The Horse Guards parade is not only a display of tradition, but also of respect, discipline, and teamwork. Visitors are welcome to watch and enjoy, but we ask that everyone maintains a safe distance and observes the rules. This ensures the safety of the horses, the guards, and all visitors. His words were met with respectful nods and quiet applause from the crowd. The message was clear. Enjoyment and respect could coexist, but awareness was key. For the tourists, the rest of the morning became a moment of reflection. They took photos, but now with consideration and respect, capturing the beauty and grandeur of the parade without trying to provoke a reaction from the horses. They observed quietly, occasionally whispering comments about the discipline and grace of the guards. One friend said softly, "I never knew horses could be so strong and so gentle at the same time." Another replied, "And the riders make it look effortless, but it takes years of training and practice." Nearby, other visitors continued to watch with admiration. Many had been drawn to the parade by its reputation, but the near incident with the tourists added a layer of excitement and intrigue to their experience. Conversations among the crowd revolved around the balance of fun and respect, the strength and intelligence of the horses, and the professionalism of the guards. Some families used the moment as a teaching opportunity, helping their children understand the importance of discipline and consideration in public spaces. As the morning moved toward midday, the playful tourists quietly reflected on their own behavior. Alex, feeling both relieved and grateful, whispered to his friends, "We got lucky that everything turned out fine. We need to remember this for the rest of our trip." His friends nodded, still processing the intensity of the moment. They realized that excitement without awareness could quickly lead to unintended consequences. In their minds, the Horse Guards Parade had become more than just a sightseeing attraction. It had become a lesson in respect, awareness, and responsibility. Meanwhile, the guards continued their duties with unwavering focus. They moved their horses with precision, guided by subtle cues and years of experience. Visitors could see the harmony between rider and animal, the seamless partnership built on trust, training, and discipline. Even after the earlier tension, the parade carried on flawlessly, a testament to the professionalism and calm authority of the Horse Guards. Every step, every movement, reinforced the importance of maintaining order and safety in a public space filled with curiosity and energy. The atmosphere gradually shifted from tense to celebratory. Tourists, including Alex and his friends, began to enjoy the parade more fully, appreciating the beauty, history, and discipline that went into every moment. Cameras clicked softly, not in an attempt to provoke, but to capture the grace of the horses and the precision of the guards. The crowd, too, settled into quiet admiration, having witnessed a dramatic but educational moment earlier. The story of the incident, though brief, had already begun to spread among the visitors, who whispered to each other about the near miss and the professionalism of the guards. Alex and his friends reflected on the experience as they watched the parade unfold. "It's amazing how calm they stayed," one said. "Even with us being silly, the guards and horses didn't overreact. It's incredible." Another friend replied, "I think that's why they train so hard. So nothing gets out of control, even when people act unpredictably." The conversation was quiet, respectful, and thoughtful, showing that the lesson had truly been absorbed. The commanding officer, seeing the crowd engaged and the tourists behaving responsibly, returned to his position slightly apart from the main parade. He observed quietly, ensuring that the morning would continue smoothly. The horses, now relaxed but alert, moved gracefully across the parade ground, their steps perfectly timed with the guards' instructions. Every detail, from the swing of the reins to the rhythm of the hooves, demonstrated the mastery of training, patience, and discipline. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the Horse Guards Parade continued, uninterrupted and magnificent. The tourists had learned the value of respect and awareness. The crowd had witnessed an unexpected lesson in discipline, and the guards had maintained their authority and composure. The incident, while tense, had strengthened the appreciation for the ceremony, leaving everyone with a memorable story to share. By late morning, Alex and his friends quietly decided to move back, giving space to other visitors. They had experienced a mix of excitement, surprise, and humility, and they wanted to observe the parade without causing any further disruptions. Their cameras were still out, but the focus had shifted from mischief to admiration. The commanding officer, satisfied with the change in behavior, allowed the parade to continue without further intervention. The morning at the Horse Guards Parade had transformed from a playful, potentially risky situation into a meaningful lesson for all involved. Visitors had witnessed a balance of authority, professionalism, and patience. The tourists had learned to enjoy the experience responsibly, understanding the importance of boundaries and respect. And the guards and horses had demonstrated their skill, training, and composure, leaving an impression of awe and admiration on everyone present. As the group of tourists quietly stepped away, they glanced back one last time. The parade, the guards, and the horses continued as if nothing had happened, yet they all knew that this morning would be remembered. It had been more than just a sightseeing trip. It had been a real-life lesson in respect, discipline, and the quiet power of tradition. The Horse Guards Parade had once again proven why it was one of London's most admired landmarks, capable of teaching important lessons while captivating the hearts of all who visited. The morning at the Horse Guards Parade had passed, and the sun was climbing higher in the sky, casting a warm glow over the parade ground. The earlier tension between the playful tourists and the mounted guards had long eased, leaving behind a sense of calm and admiration. For the tourists, this part of their trip had become unforgettable, not just for the photos or the fun, but for the lessons they had learned about respect, patience, and awareness. Alex and his friends had moved to a safer distance, their excitement now tempered by a sense of responsibility. They quietly observed the parade, noticing details they had missed before. The guards' movements were precise, every step perfectly timed with the horses' natural rhythm. The horses, strong yet gentle, moved with a grace that seemed almost unreal, responding to subtle cues from their riders with flawless timing. The tourists realized that this display was not simply about tradition. It was a testament to years of training, trust, and discipline. The crowd around them had also returned to a more relaxed and appreciative state. Families, couples, and solo visitors were all focused on the parade, enjoying the sight of the guards and horses in their full ceremonial glory. Some visitors whispered to each other about what had happened earlier, recalling the near incident with the playful tourists. Their voices carried a mixture of amusement, relief, and admiration. "That was close," one visitor said quietly, "but it was amazing to see how the horses responded without anyone getting hurt." Another added, "It really shows the professionalism and training of the guards." "Incredible," Alex's friends reflected on the morning's events quietly. "I never realized how sensitive horses could be," one said softly. "They are so powerful but also so aware of their surroundings, and the guards, they are amazing at controlling them." Another friend nodded. "We got lucky that nothing went wrong. I think we've learned a big lesson today. Respect goes a long way." Their laughter had disappeared, replaced by thoughtful admiration for the discipline and professionalism they had witnessed firsthand. The commanding officer, noticing the tourists' changed behavior, allowed them to enjoy the parade without further instructions. He maintained his position nearby, quietly observing the entire area. The officers and guards on horseback continued their ceremonial movements, demonstrating a level of precision that left the crowd in awe. Every step, every turn, every subtle gesture from rider to horse was a reminder of the hours of training and practice that went into maintaining this tradition. As the parade continued, more visitors arrived, filling the viewing area. They were drawn not only by the ceremony, but by the story that had quietly spread among the crowd about the earlier incident. People whispered about the playful tourists and how the commanding officer had calmly handled the situation, ensuring safety without creating fear or confrontation. Children asked their parents questions about the horses, the guards, and what had happened, turning the experience into a learning opportunity for everyone present. Alex and his friends watched thoughtfully as a young child approached the parade with wide eyes, pointing at the horses and asking a parent why they were so calm. The parent explained, "These horses are very special. They are trained to stay calm no matter what happens. The guards have worked hard with them, and that's why they can do these amazing performances safely." The tourists nodded quietly, realizing that their own behavior had briefly tested that calmness and that the lesson had been learned without harm. The morning slowly turned into early afternoon, and the parade reached the final stages of its routine. The horses lined up in perfect formation, their riders standing tall and poised. The tourists, including Alex and his friends, quietly took photos, capturing the moment with reverence rather than playful mischief. They whispered to each other about what they had learned and how different the experience felt when observed with respect. One said, "I think this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, and we almost ruined it with our excitement." Another replied, But now we understand it better. That makes it even more special. Meanwhile, the commanding officer gave a subtle signal to the guards, who moved their horses into a final, ceremonial position. The crowd watched in silence, captivated by the display. The horses' calmness, the riders' discipline, and the precision of every movement reflected not just tradition but dedication, patience, and respect. Visitors who had been distracted earlier by playful antics now focused entirely on the ceremony, fully appreciating the majesty of the parade. Alex and his friends reflected on the events as they took one last look at the parade. "We were so careless before," Alex said quietly. "I think this is one of those experiences that sticks with you forever. Not just the photos, but everything we learned about respect, patience, and paying attention." His friends nodded, sharing the same sense of gratitude and newfound understanding. The morning had transformed from playful mischief into a profound lesson about the balance between curiosity and discipline. Nearby visitors whispered among themselves, impressed not only by the beauty of the parade, but by the way the incident had been handled. Some commented on the commanding officer's calm authority, noting how he had intervened without creating panic or fear. Others admired the horses' incredible awareness and discipline, recognizing that these animals were trained to respond to their riders' subtle commands while remaining composed under pressure. The event had become a story to share, a memory of a morning where excitement and professionalism had intersected. As the parade drew to a close, Alex and his friends stepped back further, blending into the crowd of visitors who were leaving with smiles, photos, and stories to tell. They reflected quietly on how close they had come to a potential mishap, and how fortunate they were that the commanding officer and guards had managed the situation with skill and patience. The experience left a lasting impression, reinforcing lessons that went beyond just observing a ceremonial parade. The horses returned to a more relaxed pace as the guards guided them calmly. Visitors clapped softly, appreciating the seamless conclusion of the ceremony. Even the playful tourists, now fully aware of the importance of respect, joined in the applause. Their laughter was now tempered with humility and admiration. One whispered, "We'll remember this forever, not just the fun, but the lesson too." The crowd slowly began to disperse as the morning ended. Parents held their children's hands, sharing quiet explanations about the horses and the guards. Friends discussed their experiences, recounting the near incident with curiosity and humor. Alex and his friends walked away with a newfound respect for public ceremonies, understanding that behind every display of tradition and beauty, there was careful planning, training, and discipline. As they left the parade ground, the commanding officer remained in position, maintaining vigilance but observing the departure of visitors. The guards, mounted on their majestic horses, continued their duties with calm authority. The morning had been unusual, but it had ended safely and respectfully. The story of the playful tourists, the responsive horse, and the calm intervention of the commanding officer had already begun circulating among visitors, quietly becoming a memorable tale of the day. Alex turned to his friends one last time. "I think this morning taught us more than we expected," he said. "It's not just about seeing history, it's about understanding it and respecting it." His friends nodded, sharing a quiet smile, appreciating the wisdom they had gained alongside the excitement of the parade. The morning had started with playful mischief and curiosity, had escalated into a tense moment, and had finally ended with understanding, respect, and admiration. The Horse Guards parade had once again demonstrated why it was one of London's most cherished landmarks. It combined history, discipline, and beauty, teaching important lessons while captivating all who visited. The tourists, the crowd, and even those observing from afar would remember the morning as a story of excitement, caution, and respect. It was a reminder that even in moments of fun and curiosity, awareness and consideration could transform an experience from ordinary to unforgettable. By the time Alex and his friends left the area, the parade had returned to its normal routine. The guards and horses continued their ceremonial duties, calm and composed as always. Visitors trickled away with photographs, smiles, and stories to tell. The story of the near incident had already become part of the memory of the day, a story of excitement, respect, and the quiet but undeniable authority of the Horse Guards. The young tourists walked away quietly, still talking about what had happened. They shared reflections on the importance of discipline, the majesty of the horses, and the professionalism of the guards. They realized that their morning at the Horse Guards parade had been more than a sightseeing adventure. It had been a life lesson about patience, respect, and awareness. One friend summed it up best. "We came here to have fun, but we're leaving with a memory that teaches us something important. That's worth more than any photo." And with that, the morning concluded, a mixture of excitement, caution, and admiration. The Horse Guards parade stood as majestic as ever, the horses calm yet strong, the guards disciplined yet approachable, and the visitors wiser, more respectful, and deeply impressed. The story of the playful tourists, the responsive horse, and the calm authority of the commanding officer would remain in memory, shared with laughter, awe, and respect for years to come.